So you have a business and you want to protect your assets. I mean, the first thing you're doing as far as looking at insurance. And there are really two basic pieces of insurance. And one is the property insurance, which basically covers, those things that you own. In other words, if it's a farm, your home, your barns, your tack, your machinery, all those things, because all those things, if you lose them in a catastrophic event, or even just not a total catastrophic event, but a partial event. For example, we've had a lot of windstorms in the last year, where the corner of the barn blows off and you've got to get it replaced, and hailstorms, things like that. So you want to be able to protect that and have the ability to have the money to do that, because for example, I can tell you that we had a barn in Colorado that was hit by a major hailstorm, and that barn was probably worth about $750,000, and they had probably close to $400,000 worth of damage. If they didn't have insurance, it would put them under. They couldn't find the way to get find their way back out of something like that. So you really want to be able to protect your property. Tractors, machinery. We've had a situation where a tractor was sitting in their driveway, and for some reason it caught on fire. And fortunately, they had insurance, so they could replace it. So that property, your house, and I'm sure we read every day in the news about property, houses catching on fire, lightning strikes, things of that nature. That's what you want to do with as far as protecting your property. That's what we call in the business is first-party protection. In other words, protecting you from things that happen. In other words, you've spent money to build this facility, to buy this facility. You want to be able to put it back so you're operating again with a roof over your head, technically, quote unquote. Then we have the other piece, which can even be more catastrophic if it gets out of hand, is liability. In the equine business and farming business, there are so many things that can go wrong as far as happening that, a third party, when you're dealing with other people, you just never can predict what's going to come next. Just anything from a simple, somebody falls off in a lesson and breaks their arm. I mean, that's not a big number, but, worse things can happen in the horse business. I mean, horses can be very dangerous, so you want to make sure that you have protection for riding instruction, horses and, that you're training. To give you a quick example, in training horse, we had a trainer at a horse show. The horse got out of control. The trainer was lost got dumped in the middle of the arena. The horse took off on the arena and ran into a car. There isn't a car that it's at a minimum $1,500. In this case, we paid $5,000 to get this car repaired. That's not something you want to come out of your pocket with. You want to make sure you've got protection. When something happens that, when a third party comes back to you saying it's your fault, and you need to figure out how to get that paid for and continue on without any issues. Liability, too, there's some other things. As I said, it's third party. The other thing that is always important to remember, if you have a liability issue where something happens where they're claiming you to be negligent, where in fact you may not be. But if nothing else, what your liability policy does is provide you with a defense. A lot of people forget that that's a key part of liability insurance, other than making a settlement. And those are all things to think about. And again, if you go back to what we did before, you get into more detail that kind of outlines some of the specifics as what you need to do and how to take care of it. There's different types of liability. You've got primary liability. You buy a primary liability for $500,000. Most facilities today, let's say you're an independent trainer and you're working for a larger barn, they're going to want $1 million in coverage. And some may even want more, depending what they feel their assets are in order to protect them. So you can buy an umbrella or additional liability protection. In some cases, depending on the company, anywhere up to $10 or $20 million. Obviously, there's a cost associated with it, but you've got to look at those things to protect yourself and the people where you're leasing from, or in your case, where you own. And we'll talk about that just for a second. That you own something, and you're looking at how much liability insurance do I need. You look at it in terms of what are your assets? What are your total assets that are laid out in front of you? Maybe you're lucky enough to have some money put away somewhere. You don't want anybody to touch that. You want to protect that. You want the insurance company to pay for a liability issue if it happens, because so more often than not, the liability issue is generally it's not your fault, but there's going to be a legal cost associated with it. There's going to be a settlement just to make it go away. I know a lot of people I hear from clients, they said, why did they pay that claim? Well, they looked at it, what it would cost over time, and they said it was cheaper to settle it now than drag it on and pay more money. If you don't have the insurance or the insurance company working for you, then it all comes out of your pocket. You don't have the expertise to decide when you cut it off, and when you move forward. Another liability coverage that for those of you that are board or have training, meaning you have horses that you don't own in your care, custody, and control. Now, the limits in that case are based on a specific limit per horse, and it can go anywhere from $2,500 all the way up to $1 million. Now, most people don't go all the way up to $1 million. The average is probably somewhere between 10 and 25. But that horse that you don't own, if it gets hurt or it is killed as a result, let's say it gets out on the road, there's an accident, you've got protection, for that horse you don't own, up to whatever limit you determined you had available. Maybe it's not the total value of the horse, but it's better than not having anything. One thing I'll say, one more thing, in the example of an accident on the road, if you have a horse get out or somewhere and there's an accident, vehicle's damaged, people are hurt, the horse is hurt that you don't own, the liability policy you have will take care of the vehicle and the people in it. But if you don't have care, custody, and control, you don't have any coverage for the horse you don't own if you're thought to be negligent. Again, defense is provided in all cases. That's a key component of coverage.